Alright, today I'm going to be reviewing the module Quagmire. This was made for the BECMI set for the expert level 4 through 10. It was made by a Merle Rasmussen. So this adventure is actually a hex grid exploration sort of adventure. It's got 25 different area encounters that the adventurers could run into while making their way across the map. There's also 17 set location map areas. They're all labeled by letters instead of numbers. Some of the points of interest include the grand trading city of Slagovich, which only has a paragraph describing it as a trading town. There's about 3 paragraphs talking about the great prices that they'll pay for mules, camels, and horses. They also go over the settlement of Mule Beach and Sea Camel. These are both small trading villages. However, Sea Camel is described further as being a jewel of a city, and its white walls and red tile roofs welcome sailors from the Sea of Dread. There's not much else in the descriptors for these 3 settlements. One of the points of interest was the Brigand Ferry. It is a ferry that goes across the river that separates the 2 areas of Sea Camel and Mule Beach. It's described as a brigand ferry because there is a brigand camp at both ends, and they charge a usage fee of 1 gold piece per humanoid or 2 gold pieces per animal. I personally don't see these guys as much of a group of bandits or brigands, because that seems reasonable to me, especially if you have a level 4 adventurer. 1 gold piece or 2 gold pieces per animal is not going to be that much of a cost. However, if you refuse to pay, they will not attack you. Instead, they will let you attempt to ford the river yourself at no hassle. You have a 50% of success on foot, a 75% success if mounted on an animal, though animals only have a 25% chance of success if not mounted and attempt to ford just by themselves. The brigands do collect any lost items or equipment that an adventurer loses, trying to ford the river if they fail, along with any pack animals that are lost. Players can attempt to attack any of the brigand bands. However, if they do attack one of them, the other bands are also warned of the adventurers coming and will attempt to ambush them. If they defeat all 3 of them, the brigands and any survivors will attempt to ambush them later on during their adventures. Each camp can have anywhere between 10 to 40 brigands inside of each of them. I find this will be an excellent place to flesh out the band a little bit and put some named NPCs in here, especially the captains and the ferry leaders. Maybe have them offer information on the lost city of Thanopolis, which is pretty close to them and infested with monsters. I see no reason why they wouldn't know about the large spiral city and have an innate knowledge of its denizens. They just find having a toll to be a lot more enticing of a business prospect than, possibly dying while raiding. Now, back to the overarching adventure itself. It all starts with finding a letter inside of a bottle. The book includes a wide variety of ways the party can come into contact with a letter, and different ways the players can enter the hex grid adventure portion of the quest. This matters because, depending on the choices they make, changes which part of the map they enter in from. The module gives 4 different locations where they can come in from. There's 2 locations to the northeast that are actually land routes. There's 1 location to the southeast, which is where you come in if you decide to come in by sea. And there is the other location, the starting point of Slagovich. The letter itself is a plea from someone who calls himself the King of the Swamp, pleading for adventurers to come save them from a siege and bring food and water supplies, and offering whoever does it a vast amount of riches and offering to pay 5 times the normal price for any food and water brought to the city. It goes on to talk about how they only have probably about 6 months of supplies left, and after that their city's going to fall to the invaders. It finishes off being signed by the King of the Swamp in the spring of the current year. Now, the module itself advises the Dungeon Master to begin this adventure in the summer, which gives the party maybe about 3 months to find it before the city dies off from the siege. After wandering around the city for a bit and asking questions, players will find out the city of Quagmire is a rich trading city, though no one's heard from them in a while and no trading ships have come from their lands in a while. So, off onto an adventure they go. Now, for the DM running this campaign, according to the map, any direct routes from Slagovich to the city of Quagmire take anywhere from 50 hex grids to 55 hex grids. Each grid is approximately 24 miles, so even on foot or even by horse, it's going to take a party at least a month to get to the city of Quagmire, and that's bypassing any sort of side quests or detours they end up having to take. So eventually the players will get to the city of Quagmire. Now, Quagmire is one of the spiral cities in the module. There are 3 individual spiral cities, and they are each identical to each other with 45 locations in each. The module does an interesting thing in describing them. Instead of a page for each city, they describe each numbered area for the 3 cities together. For example, Area 20 is the day barracks in each city, but the description of how the barracks is different depending on which spiral city you're in. I think they may have done this to lower the page count. They are able to describe all 3 of the cities in a mere 6 pages. I think if they would have separated it between all 3 of the cities, I would have taken a lot more space. Now, if I remember right, this did matter back then because all the modules were limited to 32 pages. Now, like I said, there are 3 cities. They are labeled as Quagmire, the city you're trying to save, the Sunken City, which lies just a bit west of Quagmire, and Thanopolis, which lies actually near Mule Beach and Slugovich. So probably another month of traveling just to get to that lost city if you did not explore it beforehand. Now, Quagmire itself, eventually the players will get there and find out that it's being besieged by lizardmen, and not a small amount of lizardmen either. The module has at least 2 camps surrounding the city, and each camp has 6d6 times 10 amount of lizardmen in each camp. There's also a series of rafts floating around with 6d6 lizardmen on it, attempting to blockade the city. This may seem intimidating to your players, but the module itself states that the lizardmen don't appear to be actively looking for any enemies. In fact, it says the lizardmen do not see the characters as long as the characters don't draw any attention to themselves. Getting into the city won't be that hard. There is a guard force of just 2d4 lizardmen positioning itself on a raft just outside of Quagmire. Now, once the players get into Quagmire, there's not really that much going on inside of here. The descriptions for each room are either just one sentence or just barely a paragraph long. There is an account with 2d4 lizardmen inside one of the rooms, and outside the room in the water is another group of 6d6 lizardmen in case the party tries to leave the city. Other than that, the only other thing they run into is a group of normal citizens with spears that stop them on their way in, and eventually they'll get to the top and they'll speak to the ruler, a man by the name of Morlarai. I guess that's his name. I don't really know how to say it. He describes himself as the King of the Swamps. Morlarai is actually extremely sickly by the time you find him. He requests that you save his people and take them to the lost city of Thanopolis. He goes on to describe it as a spiral city just like ours. It stands in the southwest shore of Thangi Island. Please lead my people safely to Thanopolis and help them resettle. If you do this, the people will proclaim you their leaders and will serve you in your time of need. Go now, please, and seek out Thanopolis. My people will follow you there, but I cannot. I will die soon. I will enter the sea with my own city. Farewell. Now, the citizens of Quagmire only number 12 men, 14 women, and 16 children. So 42 people, and it's described as a city. I don't really know how that really works out as a city, but according to this module, it is a trade city, and a very rich one at that. So the people of Quagmire will immediately gather their belongings and supplies when the characters tell them they're going to take them to Thanopolis. The people will only go to Thanopolis and nowhere else. They will not supposedly settle anywhere else, though as the DM, I guess you are allowed to change that if you wish. And once they successfully resettle in Thanopolis, the people will thank the characters profusely and tell them they will gladly help the characters in their time of need, and the people also give the characters remains of their treasury, which actually comes out to about 12,000 gold pieces. Sounds easy, right? Just take them over to Thanopolis and just resettle all these people in there and you'll get 12,000 gold pieces. Well, it's not that easy. Getting to Thanopolis is actually going to be a journey all on itself. The journey will take probably about a month going by the land route. And I guess you could try and take the water route if you wanted to, except for the part that the city is currently besieged and surrounded by lizardmen. So that might lead to a few issues. So the players make it to Thanopolis. How they do it doesn't really matter, but as long as they make it to Thanopolis, they'll get there. And that's when they'll figure out that Tanopolis actually is infested with trolls and goblins, which they will then have to clear out in order for the citizens of Quagmire to resettle the place and claim it as their own. All 42 of them are going to create a city in this spiral city after you've cleared out of all the monsters. So after that, your adventure pretty much is done. You've gotten your reward of 12,000 gold pieces, along with whatever else you've collected along the way. But what about the third spiral city, the Sunken City? If the players decide to go into the Sunken City, it's purely optional. It is actually infested with merfolk. And at the top of the spiral city, the same location where you would have found the Swamp King in Quagmire, you will find the Merfolk King, which you can attempt to fight. However, there's not much treasure in here, and having the players trying to figure out a way to breathe underneath water and, fight in the city under the water may not really be worth it. Your players may find it less than appealing. Now, I will say that even though it may have sounded like I was talking bad about this module the entire time, it actually is kind of interesting. It appears to have taken a lot of, direction from X1, the Isle of Dread. However, this one doesn't have dinosaurs. Instead, it's full of lizardmen and swamps. Should a DM be wishing to undertake this, I would highly suggest that they work on fleshing out not only the 3 settlements that already exist here, but also the descriptions and NPCs that can be found in the spiral city of Quagmire. It really seems that Rasmussen actually created this module as a skeleton for the DM to flesh out, with his own descriptions and fit it into his own sort of like setting. The module itself also includes some interesting new monsters, to include killer trees, which are trees that have 4 tentacles that drag players towards it, and if the players aren't quick enough to chop down the tentacle, it will proceed to attempt to eat them. It also introduces things called pocket dragons, which are, as described, dragons that are pocket-sized, and giant fish, and crabgrass, and piranha birds. Now, this module is actually available print on demand at DMsguild. It costs $5 for not only the copy right now, but also the PDF. And that's bundled. That's not each. It's for both of them. The print on demand and the PDF are only $5 right now. Now, don't hate on me too bad for this review. This is the first one I've done, and I'm trying to figure out how this whole thing works. But I hope you all got something out of it. All right, y'all have a good day.